This is Secret America.
Welcome, everybody. I am Jack Danger along with Jay Gatling. Tonight, we're joined by one of the most polarizing, strategic, and talked about figures in modern American politics, a man who has been at the center of power for decades, from the rise of presidents to the battles behind the scenes that most people never get to see. He's been targeted, investigated, pardoned, and he still stands right in the middle of it all. Love him or hate him, you cannot ignore him. Ladies and gentlemen, Roger Stone joins Secret America. Roger, how you doing today?
Gentlemen, Jay, Jack, great to be with you once again. You're right. I've spent 50 years in the corroded rectum of the two-party system. I've seen it all. I'm a veteran of 13 national presidential elections.
Wow.
I have witnessed the greatest single abuse of power, the greatest single dirty trick in American political history. That's the Russian collusion hoax as conducted by the late Robert Mueller. And I'm here to lay it all out for you tonight.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. But first of all, the first thing I got to ask you about, though, is Steve Bannon speaking at CPAC. I mean, that was the surprise to me that they invited him to speak. But then also you see, you know, he's been influenced by the CCP, by the China Communist Party. And Trump wants to, he's not going to be there this year for the first time in decades, or in a decade, because of this Chinese influence. So what do you think about all this?
Well, first of all, I was the one who persuaded Donald Trump to go to his first CPAC in 2011. He wasn't familiar with it then, or its important role in the early presidential candidacy of Ronald Reagan, for example.
Yeah.
But I think Steve Bannon is now completely and totally exposed. First of all, he was a co-conspirator in a $1 billion fraud, but he was unindicted, not charged. He pled guilty to a $15 million embezzlement of funds from the Build the Wall Foundation. But once again, he was found guilty, but served no time. And as we have found recently, there's substantial evidence that the funding that he received from Miles Guo, when Guo was prosecuted, or Miles Guo, I should say, when he was prosecuted and asked under oath whether it was CCP money, he refused to answer. It looks like William G., who worked very closely with Bannon. We have court records showing 194 back and forth phone conversations with Bannon. William G. was a CCP official. That is undisputed. So that, plus now the Department of Justice releasing the epic emails between Jeffrey Epstein and Steve Bannon, demonstrate that Epstein was essentially Bannon was essentially an Epstein accomplice. He was advising Epstein on how to reform and rehabilitate his public image. The idea, I think, that Bannon is MAGA, or the centerpiece of the MAGA movement, as he himself insisted in his
he tries to portray himself as that.
Yeah, it's absurd.
Yeah, he's trying to portray himself as actually he's the MAGA. Give me a break. There's one person that's MAGA. There's one person that started it. There's one person that the movement, I like to call it, Roger, the revolution, because the revolution always keeps coming around. The MAGA revolution is President Trump. Now, somebody's going to take the reins once he's out of office. We don't know who that is yet. We have an idea of maybe who it could be. But the fact that Steve Bannon is coming out with this fringe, what I like to call this fringe lunatic movement, or whatever you want to call it, and claiming that they're going to take this over to me, is not only absurd, but it's also, it kind of annoys me, to be honest with you. When who does he think he is that he's gonna speak for MAGA? He's not.
Well, that was actually a good question. I'm sorry, Roger, go ahead.
I mean, look, I think that's the whole point, which is it's one thing to go on your podcast and insist that you are 100% pro-Trump when you're caught in emails from Jeffrey Epstein saying that Trump should be removed under the 25th Amendment, and that Mike Pompeo, of all people, a globalist New World Order jerk, should replace him. I mean, Bannon can't kind of have it both ways. He was attacking Trump, calling him stupid, yet on his podcast, of course, you would have him believe that he's the ultimate loyalist. I think the bloom is off that rose.
I'm actually glad that Jay brought this up about when Trump is gone. I wanted to ask you, who do you see as a possible person that could take the reins of MAGA once Trump is no longer able to be president?
Well, first of all, Trump cannot run for a third term. That's another grift by Bannon, who constantly throws that out there. When he's asked about the constitutional prohibition of that, he says, "Well, we have lawyers working on it," which I can assure you, there's nothing to work on. It's very clear. No person can serve more than 2 terms as president of the United States. They don't necessarily have to be consecutive, as in the case of Grover Cleveland and now Donald Trump. We as Republicans have a tradition in our party. The sitting vice president, who served very loyally, very able, will be very difficult for anybody to unhorse in an inter-party contest. I just saw a credible poll out of New Hampshire for a theoretical New Hampshire Republican presidential primary that showed the vice president leading a theoretical field that included Secretary of State Marco Rubio,
Really?
Ron DeSantis, that's a joke, and Tulsi Gabbard. But the vice president had nearly 50% of the vote, had about 46% of the vote, with the closest possible potential contender, Marco Rubio, who I think is doing a great job as Secretary of State, at about 27, everybody else in single digits. If J.D. Vance chooses to become a candidate, I think he's highly likely to be nominated. And I think he's worthy. I mean, he's in a difficult position in that the vice president's most effective work is done behind the scenes. You don't get to grab the spotlight. People don't know what you've done. That's not your job. Your job is not to distract, obviously, from the president. JD is very, very effective, extraordinarily loyal, and I think you'd have to consider him a strong front runner.
I find him to be very sharp. I mean, very smart, very good with the media. I mean, quick. And he's also got that kind of snarkiness about him where he can fight back on the media, kind of the way President Trump, well, nobody does it like President Trump, but JD has that too, where he can, I really don't give a damn Margaret kind of thing, where right away in the beginning of this presidency, he went with Margaret Brennan and made that viral clip when she was trying to, I guess, simp for illegal aliens. And he said, yeah, no, we're not doing this. I think JD is very sharp. I love the way he handles himself. I think as you just said, from what I just heard from you, you think the same, that he would absolutely be a worthy successor to carry on MAGA.
Yeah, I would like to know, though.
There's the true irony, which is in our party, we've got an incredible bench. You've got J.D. Vance, who I think would be great. I have very high regard for him. I think Marco Rubio is doing a great job as Secretary of State. I love Tulsi Gabbard. Everybody knows that. I've talked about how I see her as a future contender, not necessarily 2028, but down the road. Who have they got? They've got Cory Booker. I mean,
Gavin Newsom.
They've got Gavin Newsom. They've got, pardon me, J.B. Pritzker. I mean, please give me a break.
He's walking, Roger. He's trying to lose weight. Go ahead, Jack.
Every single one of those people is rife with scandals and horrible leadership and theft. I mean, theft is rampant in all of those places. But let me ask you, do you see Marco Rubio as a possible VP candidate, like a Vance Rubio ticket?
Look, anything is possible. If the party and the president called on Marco Rubio to take that position, I imagine that he would serve the public and do so, but nobody runs purposely for vice president. And I would point out to you that Marco Rubio went essentially from college to the legislature, to the Speaker's office, to the U.S. Senate, to the Secretary of State's office. So he has no particular wealth, but he does have a family to support. And post-public service, he could obviously, quite honestly, earn a great deal of money. The private sector might be attractive to him. Also, I think, frankly, that it's time for a woman on the Republican ticket. So Tulsi Gabbard is a potential vice president, regardless of who we nominated for president. And I think that nominee is still likely to be Vice President J.D. Vance, would be very attractive. The Democrats will surely put a woman on the ticket.
Do you? Sorry, Jack, I just want to ask about Tulsi. When you brought up Tulsi Gabbard, do you fully trust Tulsi Gabbard because she was a Democrat? Well, President Trump was also, but more recently she was a Democrat. And I love the things she has said especially during the last campaign. Do you trust Tulsi Gabbard to really be there when the chips are down as vice president?
Absolutely. First of all, who is it who declassified the documents that proved to us that the Mueller investigation and the Russian collusion was an entire hoax? I mean, the current CIA director, John Ratcliffe, was the director of the Office of National Intelligence in the first term. He could have declassified those documents, but he didn't. Tulsi Gabbard has done so. I think that I trust her completely. This is not about party. I think that she, like RFK, is now more at home in the Republican Party as the party of freedom and as an anti-war party. Just because the president has decided to use American power on a very limited basis, on a very projected, limited, tactical, strategic basis. That's not the same as boots on the ground. It's not the same of hundreds of thousands of American casualties. It's not the same of giant defense contracts for companies like Halliburton and General Dynamics. That you all saw that under Bush in the war in Iraq. So I think the president is on the right course. I think Tulsi Gabbard completely supports the president's agenda, both domestically and when it comes to foreign policy. And yes, I think that she has a more rightful home in the Republican Party.
Yeah, you brought up Robert Mueller and the whole investigation there. And obviously, that he passed away recently. I wanted to get your thoughts on not only his passing, but also Trump's tweet. I thought it was funny. Robert Mueller tried to destroy his life over nothing. So I completely understand his animosity.
So let's just remember that my home was raided at 6 o'clock in the morning by 29 heavily armed FBI agents in full SWAT gear with night goggles, brandishing fully automatic M4 assault weapons. That was completely unnecessary. I was a first-time non-violent offender charged with a process crime. And CNN just coincidentally happened to be 25 feet from the front door, like they weren't tipped off. It's interesting because I was arrested at 6:11 in the morning. At 6:22, a CNN correspondent texted a copy of my sealed criminal indictment to my lawyer, and it had, of course, no court markings or timestamp.
You think Mueller leaked that stuff?
If you look at the metadata tags for that document, you find the initials of the man who wrote it. Therefore, the man who leaked it, Andrew Weissman, the snake who was the de facto head of the Mueller investigation. If you look at Mueller's congressional testimony immediately after he closed his investigation, I think that he was non-compos mentis. He was a front man for the deep state. And why not? Let's look at his overall record. When he's the FBI director, he gets reports of Middle Eastern men in a rented home in North Florida training at a local flight school who seem far more interested in learning how to take off than learning how to land. But he conducts no investigation until after the 9/11 attacks, when he connects those men to the hijackers. He covered up the crimes of the Boston gangster Whitey Bulger when he was the head of the FBI. He whitewashed the investigation into the pay-for-play going on at the Clinton Foundation, in which everything in American policy was for sale to foreign interests. And then lastly, when Hillary Clinton did her secret deal to sell 70% control of America's uranium to Russia, who was it who carried the sample over to Russia for inspection? Well, it was none other than Robert Mueller. So this guy has been the cleanup man for the deep state. I don't feel badly for him. Did he feel badly when he rousted my wife at 6 o'clock in the morning and perp walked her in her pajamas out for the CNN cameras? I don't think this guy deserves any mercy. Had he lived, he should have been prosecuted. And now the judgment of Robert Mueller moves to a much, much higher court.
Real quick, I saw your tweet. I loved your tweet where you said, I think you said something about he's in a much warmer place now or something like that. That was great. I love that tweet.
Well, I appreciate that. Look, I would not be here but for the grace of God, but for the fact that I'm redeemed in the blood of the cross, that I realized that I was going to be framed and lynched. And remember, I was also gagged, so I couldn't even come on a show like yours to defend myself. That's unconstitutional. And we now know that my lawyers asked for the fully unredacted copy of Robert Mueller's final report, and the judge denied it to them. She said that she would review the report and give us the sections that were relevant. It seems like she forgot page 168, because in Mueller's unredacted report that only got released by court order, and the Justice Department put it out at midnight on Election Day of 2020. If you want something not to be seen, that's the time to put out a press release. Page 168 points out that Mueller found no evidence of Russian collusion, WikiLeaks collaboration, or any other crime on my part. So they went to two federal judges, and they said, we have probable cause to charge Roger Stone with treason, conspiracy against the United States, money laundering, counterfeiting, aiding and abetting a conspiracy before and after the fact, unauthorized access to a government computer. They had evidence of none of those crimes.
No.
So they invented this false charge of lying under oath to Congress about Russian collusion that never actually happened. But their real goal, and I think you guys know this, was to pressure me to testify falsely against Donald Trump.
Yep.
In other words, they spent $30 million. They couldn't find any Russian collusion, so they were trying to invent it, and I refused to go along with that. And I realized I was staring into the abyss. But for the grace of God and the fact that Donald Trump figured out that I was being pressured unfairly to testify against him is why he commuted my sentence and ultimately gave me a full and unconditional presidential pardon.
Rightfully so.
Absolutely. And, if Democrats win, we won't be able to have this show either. So me and Jack always say, you got to get out and vote. You got to vote Republican, even if you're not happy with some of them, because this show will be wiped, just like they tried to do in 2020, just like they tried to do before Twitter was bought by Elon Musk. Now that Robert Mueller is gone, Roger, is there any chance you think that we have a better shot of maybe getting to the bottom of that whole fiasco, of that whole crime, that was the crimes that were committed against you? You were the victim. President Trump was the victim. Members of his family were the victims. Is there any chance that we ever really get to the bottom of this? And will anybody ever face justice?
Well, it's completely up to the current Justice Department, the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, the Deputy Attorney, Todd Blanche, and it's, I think, particularly up to the U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of Florida. And here's why. The Russian collusion hoax is a continuing seditious conspiracy. It's born in April of 2016 in a White House meeting with Barack Obama, Joe Biden, the CIA director, John Brennan, the FBI director, James Comey, the ODNI director at the time, General James Clapper, National Security Advisor, Susan Rice. They cook up the Clinton plan. This is the depraved plan to blame Trump's election, should he win, on Russian interference in the election. That spills over into two phony impeachments. The second one really was a cover-up. It was both proactive and reactive, meaning they had to cover the fact that Joe Biden had threatened to withhold $1 billion from Ukraine if the president of Ukraine didn't fire the prosecutor investigating his son and Burisma. That continues, of course, into the theft of the 2020 election. Yes, I said theft. Sorry, Joe Biden, who was a diaper-wearing vegetable, could barely leave his basement, did not get 81 million votes, did not do 20% on average better than Barack Obama in African-American precincts.
The most votes in history, apparently, for a guy who campaigned from his basement and said you're not black if you don't vote for him.
Who had, by the way, a lifetime history of oppressing black people. I mean, he is the author of the 1994 crime bill, which has been disproportionately used on people of color and poor people. This is when Nixon launched the war on drugs. It was focused on drug traffickers and drug kingpins. It isn't until Joe Biden, as chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and Bill Clinton as president, changed the focus to the first time nonviolent use of crime of drugs by individuals. They make those crimes mandatory. The judges have no discretion. So let's say, for example, somebody who's convicted of the first time nonviolent possession of a small amount of marijuana facing a 15-year sentence, despite the fact they have no previous record. That's Joe Biden, who was the author of that law.
And Donald Trump passes the First Step Act. Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, no,
First step and the Second Chance Act. So Trump comes up and cleans up this mess. The first meaningful criminal justice reform in American history.
Yep.
And all the members of the Black Caucus who've been calling for these changes, they all vote against those reforms. Why? Simply because Donald Trump proposed them.
That's right.
Absolutely. So many things are done just because Donald Trump did it. They'll do the exact opposite. That's why I always said Donald Trump should come out against oxygen. I think all the Democrats would stop breathing if he came out against oxygen. But
well, if he found a cure for cancer tomorrow, they would say Trump puts oncologists out of work. You know?
Oh, absolutely. He's getting rid of jobs by curing cancer. Exactly. So I want to ask you. I'm going to switch gears for a second. I want to ask you about Joe Kent. It's such a controversial figure and what was going on because he was so pro MAGA and everything before this. And he says he still is. He just says that he doesn't agree with the Iran war. So that's why he resigned. And it's such a controversial thing. Now there's apparently an investigation that was beforehand happening before he resigned, having to do with classified document thing. What do you think about this whole situation? And why do you think he really resigned?
I find huge discrepancy between what he was saying about Iran and the danger posed by nuclear Iran a year ago and what he is saying today. So I'm going to wait for the investigation before I make a final decision. But it appears to me that he was putting his own political interests ahead of the country. I think this was a tough decision for the president, but a nuclear Iran is an extraordinary danger to not only the region, but the world. I think the president did the right thing. And Joe Kent, whether he actually leaked these things, we don't know yet. I'm not going to accuse him of that because I don't know it to be a fact, but I do think the investigation is appropriate.
Yeah, my issue with it was how he left. You're allowed to leave, you're allowed to resign, but I just thought it should have happened in a closed door meeting. You don't put that out for the fodder. I thought it was put out for fodder. It was put out to serve a narrative, and the next thing you know, he's on Tucker Carlson and sitting down with Candace Owens, that whole group. That's what bothered me. I don't know is that how you saw it, Roger? Everybody's allowed to resign, but
I think he was clout chasing, trying to build his brand for whatever he has in mind next. I also point out the immediate fake news narrative that Tulsi Gabbard's resignation was imminent immediately after Kent, which turned out to be completely and totally false. And I thought she handled herself extremely well in the Senate, pointing out that she doesn't make the decision. The president makes the decision. Her job is to turn over the best information she can collect. And in this case, that's exactly what she did.
No, you're absolutely right. I wanted to ask you about something. I saw it's some kind of weird tweet that I saw that you responded to. But this woman says that why are Roger Stone, Sam Nunberg, Wu Zhang, Hu Shuli, and Jack Ma, those involved in deporting Mr. Go, setting up this Trump media trap? And she's trying to say that it's because you're blocking Trump from joining Getter and all this. Why are people putting out these type of narratives?
I think that Miles Guo, or whatever name he's using this week, the Chinese national, who we can find a letter of him praising Xi and the CCP. And I think the money he was playing with was CCP money based on the New York trial and the involvement of William G. I think I think he has a number of paid bots who continue to push this narrative. But the bottom line of it is, I think this was CCP money. I think when Trump said, I'm not going to CPAC because some of their speakers have been compromised by the CCP, I believe it was Steve Bannon he was talking about.
Absolutely.
Steve Bannon. It always seems to come back to Steve Bannon somehow. I just can't believe how quickly Steve Bannon, when during Trump 1.0, he was never not almost by the president's side. Did you have the same reservations back then about Steve Bannon that you do now, or is just proven to be true? Any reservations?
Well, in 2017, I wrote an op-ed for the Daily Caller in which I called on President Trump to fire Steve Bannon, and he was fired the very next day. He was a leaker who continually put his agenda ahead of the president's. Now, I understand a lot of people watching this will say, well, wait a minute, Steve Bannon is a critic of the CCP, so how can he be funded by the CCP? Again, look at the double game he played with Epstein. He's on the War Room. By the way, he stole that name from me. My show at InfoWars was The War Room, which I co-hosted for 18 months with my good friend Owen Schroyer. He goes on the War Room, and of course he's hard lining it when it comes to the CCP. He's hard lining when it comes to Epstein. He's for full disclosure of all the Epstein documents. Little does he know that we're ultimately going to find out that he's in constant communications with Epstein. So we also know that he's a major financial criminal. That's true in the case in which he's an unindicted co-conspirator in the $1 billion fraud case against Miles Guo. One thing's for sure, he's not spending the money on soap.
That's funny. That's a good one. I want to ask you, and this is kind of a strange question, but it's something that I really want to know. I want to know your opinion on the whole, and this is gonna obviously switch gears because it's not about this kind of thing. But I want to know your opinion on the whole Netanyahu thing, where people were saying that he died, and they were putting out these weird AI videos, and you could tell they were AI videos. Now, I'm not saying that he died, because obviously he had the live press conference and all that later on. But what do you think about them putting out these videos that were clearly AI, like with the 2 ear holes and the 6 fingers and all that stuff?
Look, I think AI is extraordinarily dangerous.
Yes.
During the January 6th committee hearings, which was a total fraud, Jamie Raskin came out and said that tomorrow we're going to prove that Roger Stone was in on these crimes. And then they leaked a bunch of AI-generated videos to CNN. But then the next day they showed the same audio track with a different video track, both of which, by the way, anybody can put through a simple AI detection, a computer program, and determine that they were created, that they were falsified. So AI is extraordinarily dangerous. You can find videos of me saying terrible things about Donald Trump that I never actually said. That's the game. So people have to be very careful when they see this stuff. It used to be true that you could believe your own eyes. Now I'm not sure you can believe that.
No, but it was. I just mean it was weird how it was Netanyahu's own account, the Israel Prime Minister account, that put out AI videos of him, kind of like proof of life type videos. And I was just curious what you thought about the actual Israel account putting out those AI videos of him.
I have to be honest with you. I was so busy preparing for my syndicated radio show on Sundays at 77 WABC. I didn't pay much attention to it. I saw the early reports that Netanyahu had died, but then I didn't really follow it after that, to be honest with you.
No,
when it comes,
understandable.
Sorry, Jack. When it comes to Netanyahu, you've known President Trump for decades. You know him probably better than anybody. Is there anybody that you feel has an undue or is overly influential over the president when it comes to anything, or is the president his own man no matter what, in any what the situation is? Is anybody really going to push the president to make a decision he doesn't want to make?
Let me tell you something. Donald Trump is very much his own man. He's not handled, he's not managed, he's not scripted, he's not dictated to by anyone. He collects information from a broad cross-section of advisors and sources, but he makes his own decisions. And anybody who thinks he's controlled by anyone doesn't understand him. By the way, that's why we elected him, because he's not a career politician reading talking points written by someone else. He's the real deal. He's genuine, he's authentic, and he's very much his own man. So this idea that our foreign policy is controlled by Israel, no, I think that Iran is a danger to the world and to the region. The president has acted in the best interests of the United States.
So do you think that? Are you saying that Israel he didn't attack Iran because of pressure from Israel?
No, I don't believe that is the case. I think he would take that into consideration, but I think he attacked Iran because he realized that they were inching closer and closer to a nuclear weapon. They also, by the way, let me point out, have a long history of killing Americans, all the way back to the Marine barracks under Ronald Reagan in Beirut, the attack on the USS Cole, the first attack on the World Trade Center, taking 254 Americans hostage in 1979. This is a brutal regime, and they continue to kill their own citizens in the streets up until weeks ago. Look, I'm not privy to what intelligence the president saw, but he saw enough that he decided to make a move, and I trust his judgment.
Makes sense.
Yeah, when I was going through the 47 years, and you look at all the times, it's a list longer than a mile long of the things Iran has done, the amount of Americans they've killed, not only civilians, military members. The conclusion I came to is people said, "Why now?" I said, "Well, what?" My conclusion was, "What took so long?" And the way I track this with President Trump is he's just actually somebody that says he does what he says. He said forever, Iran cannot go nuclear. They can't go nuclear. They can't do this. And I also feel, Roger, that he bends over backwards to use force as a last resort. He did it the first time before he struck the nuclear facilities, and he gave them so many times this time to try to just say, okay, we'll come to some kind of agreement. And they didn't. And finally said enough is enough. Is that how he's always been as a businessman, as you've known him? Now he's just translated it to politics?
Look, I think he believes in peace through strength, that you remain strong as a deterrent. This is in the tradition of Dwight Eisenhower and Ronald Reagan, as opposed to the neocon philosophy of meddling in endless foreign wars where our inherent national interests were never clear. So I think the president uses American power reluctantly. He uses it with measure. He uses it on a very targeted but limited basis, but a very lethal basis. And if he believes, as he clearly did, that the situation in Iran warranted the use of American power on a limited basis, then I support that decision. Again, no boots on the ground, no heavy American casualties, no ramp up in defense spending to pay off the big defense contractors and so on. It's still a very different foreign policy than any recent president.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't think, I mean, as long as they're not boots on the ground or, increased defense spending into where it's an actual war, we don't want to get into one of those long, endless wars. And that's not what this is, at least not at the moment. And I don't think it will be. Like you said, we got to trust his judgment. I mean, we've trusted it so far and it's gotten us here. So that's a good thing. I want to ask you, ex-CIA officer John Kirikow said that he knows for a fact that each and every time an Israel prime minister or president visits the White House, that they say, will you attack Iran? And it's happened all the way back since Reagan was president, apparently. What do you think about that? And do you think they did the same thing to Trump, that they just, would ask him every time? Now, I'm not saying that he did it because of Israel. Obviously, Iran is, an enemy to pretty much the entire world. But I'm just saying that he says that apparently Israel has been trying to pressure each and every president to attack Iran.
Well, but this is not a surprise because everything that you say is reported publicly. I mean, there's no question that the Israeli government, the current Israeli government, urged the president to take action. The president still wouldn't have taken action if he didn't determine that the situation was in the best interests of the United States, and
that's the key.
That Iran was a very dangerous actor. So the idea that Trump is controlled, I've known him for 50 years, trust me. He still eats the steak extremely well done, which, I don't know how you can't talk him out of that, I guarantee you.
That was extremely well done, man. I couldn't do that.
You can't talk a man how he likes his steak, Roger, no matter what. But let's change it up a little bit. When it comes to now, midterms are coming up, and they're coming up fast now. We're really getting there. I always say there's a million political lifetimes. Things can change on a dime, but we're getting there now. What do you think with everything going on? What's the most important thing that Republicans, we know what the president is going to do. We know how he operates. We know the president, his policy is what we voted for. We have the Save America Act that we're trying to put through, even though it's a 90% issue and we're struggling. What can Republicans do to support the president to make sure that he has the majorities in both the House and the Senate after the midterms?
Well, if we look at history as any guide, the party in power always loses seats. But then we never had a businessman who came out of nowhere to become president. So I kind of argue all the old rules have been canceled when it comes to Donald Trump. In the big, beautiful bill, I think he laid out the backdrop for the 26 elections almost perfectly, because food prices are coming down. Gas prices came down. Now, they'll go up temporarily because of this action in Iran, but then I think they will continue to go down. Once we get a non-political Federal Reserve Board and we get the interest rates cut that FHFA Director Bill Pulte has been pushing for, we'll have a housing boom in this country. The tax on tips is gone. 88% of those receiving Social Security benefits will pay no taxes on it, thanks to the leadership of Donald Trump. So I think the backdrop for an election is very strong. Now, elections are rarely decided on foreign policy issues. It's the economy, and food prices are down, but they're not down as low as they were at the end of the president's first term. So I have a very high regard for Scott Bessent, the Secretary of the Treasury. He's a brilliant, brilliant guy. He's a brilliant analyst. He's a brilliant strategic planner. There's no better person to carry out the president's economic plan than Scott Bessent. And he really believes we're headed for a golden age in terms of our economy. I agree with that. The war in Iran is a detour, but I don't think we're in for a long, prolonged struggle. And I think oil prices, which are temporarily up a bit, will continue to drop when this is over in time for the election. We have far more cash than the Democrats do. In fact, they're having trouble raising money. Mm-hmm. That's important because it cancels out, when you can spend for electronic advertising, it cancels out the influence of ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC. Hell, I don't get my news from CNN for the same reason I don't drink out of the toilet.
Yeah, same here. I don't do that. I don't do either of those. So let me ask you, I happen to believe that, obviously the economy and affordability is a big issue for voters in the upcoming midterms. But I happen to think that since Trump is not the one on the ballot, it is the other Republicans in the Senate and the House. I happen to think that in order for us to keep the majorities or get a greater majority, there has to be some sort of justice. I mean, there has to be some sort of arrest for all the past transgressions that we've had. I mean, that's why most people voted for Trump. I personally voted for him for revenge on the government, revenge for what happened to you, Roger, revenge for what happened to him, revenge for what happened to all Americans that were conservatives and were harassed, arrested, thrown in gulags, that were false flagged, every bit of it. We want justice. It doesn't even have to be revenge, just justice. There are easily prosecutable crimes out there. Why? I mean, I think if we're going to win, we have to do something. We have to give us some kind of justice. I think your mic is on mute, Roger.
Yep.
I'm back.
You're back.
Yep, you're good.
Look, it's not about revenge and retaliation. It's about justice and accountability. Mm-hmm. It's amazing to me that those who violated the law and the Constitution in their manic effort to get Donald Trump and destroy him, now when they're being investigated and potentially prosecuted, they're whining endlessly that this is politically motivated. Yeah. Their attempts to destroy Trump was politically motivated, and they used the full authority of the United States government to do it. So, yes, I agree with you that the American people want to see accountability and justice. And I'm hopeful that the U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of Florida, where this seditious conspiracy ends and the raid at Mar-a-Lago, will bring criminal indictments against that whole criminal gang that I outlined earlier. This was a cabal. This was a seditious conspiracy to remove a duly elected president, and somebody has to be held accountable for it. Trump's voters very clearly expect that. They demand it. It remains to be seen whether our Justice Department will supply it. I'm still hopeful.
Roger, we know you got to go. So why don't you tell everybody where they can see your radio show, where they can get your books and all that.
I appreciate that. You can go to stonezone.com. That's the very best place. Stonezone.com. I'm also every day at 8 p.m. every weekday. I'm at wabcradio.com for the Stone Zone. That's my syndicated radio show. And then on Sundays, it's the Roger Stone Show, again, at wabcradio.com. My strong advice, though, is go to stonezone.com. You can subscribe for absolutely free. You can get your Roger Stone Did Nothing Wrong t-shirt or your signed Roger Stone there, or any of my great books, stonezone.com. Check it out.
Yeah, definitely check out stonezone.com. Jay, you got anything to say before we let him go?
I just want to thank Roger once again. This was amazing. We love having you on. We definitely got to do it again. And when you speak to the president, like I said last time, tell him there's so many people out here that support him. We know what he goes through every day. He's taking so much for us, the American people, the American citizen, and we appreciate it. Always let him know that people out here love him and we have his back. And I think it's important for him to know that.
And you, Roger, we support you as well. And that's one of the main reasons. Honestly, the videos of your raid, what happened there, that is like the symbol of wanting justice. That is like the symbol of what happened to the American people. What happened to you is like a symbol for justice. And that's one of the main reasons that we want justice, is for you.
Yep.
I appreciate that, gentlemen. God bless you both, and good night.
All right. Thank you very much, Roger. You have a great night.
Thank you.
All right, that was Roger Stone. That was excellent. He is such a great guy coming on here and answering the questions, and very poised. He knows everything. You notice that he doesn't have to think about it. I mean, everything you ask him, he knows already about it. It's not something that he has to try to think about. He knows about it. It's incredible.
No, he's great. I mean, he is sharp as a tack. I mean, the way he just rattles his stuff off. You could ask him something from 50 years ago or 5 minutes ago or 5 days ago. It doesn't matter. He's got it right there at the tip of his tongue. And he's so sharp. His acumen obviously is, second to none politically. So to have him on here, and he was fun. I got to tell you, he was funny tonight.
He was. He had some good stuff to say.
Oh man, a couple of those one-liners on a couple of things. That was hysterical. Yeah, I mean, like laughing. Obviously, you heard me and you saw me laughing out loud.
It was funny, man.
That was
I
awesome.
want to thank Enrique though. Also, that is his also. So yeah, we really appreciate both you guys for getting this done and having Roger come on, Jay. So I want to know I want to know your thoughts actually on the Joe Kent thing. I know you were upset at first at the way it happened, but I mean, the man is, like we talked about before, he is an 11-tour combat veteran. His wife was actually killed in combat overseas. I mean, he's a gold star husband. That's not something you see very often. This man was MAGA, and he still is. He is the only thing he said. The only thing that is the problem, he has a problem with what happened in Iran. Now, he is privy to information we are not, Jay. We can't say that he's doing it for the wrong reasons. We don't know, because he is privy to information that we are not. I understand you don't like the letter. Maybe it should have been handled privately. That's fine. But let's put the letter aside for a second. He is not somebody that we just turn on just because of that. Now, he went on Tucker, and he went on a few other places to explain. And if you watch the interviews, they are very factual. Okay, he doesn't go on there, and it doesn't seem like he's going on there and saying, hey, look at me, I'm doing this for clout. Maybe the letter might have been the way to start that. That might have been a clout chasing thing. But when he went on these shows, it was very factual. He was very matter of fact. He told truths. I mean, he didn't lie about anything. So he's not someone that's just clout chasing. Let's put it that way.
I think if he would have, when you do the letter, which I do have an issue with, I think it could have been handled much differently. As I said
it could have been handled better. Yeah.
Much better. But then when you go to certain people right away, it just backs up the whole reason why people say, wait a minute, you write this letter, which you didn't have to do. You could have resigned, and everybody gives you the right to resign. And again, nobody would ever demean his service. It's heroic. Yeah. And obviously his wife is a hero. His current wife, however, is a different story. Her rhetoric is completely just the opposite of everything that I personally believe.
Now, do you think she influenced his decision?
Maybe so. I don't know.
It's possible. I mean, does the wife have influence on your decisions?
I think a spouse has influence each way. Husband has an influence on a wife's decision. A wife has influence on a husband's decision.
I'm saying, if she's barking in his ear all the time, what do you think?
I think that's quite possible. What my other issue is, I wish he would have then went to different. If you don't just run to Tucker and Candace and everybody else.
Well, those are the ones that contact. They did contact him first.
Come on our show and come on. I'm not saying, but come on a show like ours, which we're just going to ask you honest questions. We're not going to, rah anything. They're more of the rah camp and the rah. Oh, it is Israel. And that's my problem, Jack.
And we have tried to contact him, but he ignores shows like ours because we will ask, the real questions and want the real answers. We're not going to, Joe, if you come on the show, we're not going to denigrate you. We're not going to make fun of you. We're not going to, try to make you look bad. All we're going to do is ask actual questions, and we just want actual answers. We're not going to, say, hey, great job. You did a great job. We're not going to do that kind of thing, but we will say, we appreciate your service. We appreciate your wife's service. And, we would like to have you on just to ask and answer actual questions, not just regular softball shit that they're going to throw at you.
No, and I think, like I said, he's going into a very friendly environment there. He knows that they're not going to come after him. They know that he's not really going to get hard questions about anything from that group, because that group loved what he heard. It was kind of like soft porn for them. It was
Do
like,
you think he'll get hard questions from Mark Levin?
Mark Levin? Oh yeah, I think he absolutely would get.
He's going on Mark Levin's radio show.
Okay, then I applaud him for doing that, because he absolutely will get hard questions from Mark Levin. Mark Levin is basically the opposite of everything Joe Kent said in that letter. So I applaud him for doing that. I think he should do that. I think it adds to his credibility. It's not just a political hack who said, "Oh, I disagree," or "I'm going to push a narrative," like Roger said, for clout chasing, so I could set up my next career after my government service.
The letter felt like clout chasing. The letter did feel like clout chasing, but
it sounded like Nick Fuentes wrote the letter. I said it as soon as it came out, Jack. I'm like, did Nick Fuentes write this? I think he even commented on this post.
But you can't discount his MAGA, and he was all America First MAGA. I mean, this guy was huge MAGA. So you can't just discount him because of one letter. I'm not going to throw somebody in the trash because of one letter. I want to see what he says on Levin.
What Mark Levin is, I mean, obviously staunch pro-Israel. He always has been. That's Mark Levin. He is Jewish. He's very pro-Israel. He's also Mark Levin. When President Trump, I've listened to Mark Levin for years, and I was listening to him before President Trump first got elected in 2016. And Mark Levin was very skeptical on President Trump. He was not MAGA. Mark Levin came to love the president through his first term and saw wow, look at these Supreme Court justices he's trying to appoint. They seem to be conservative. And obviously a couple of them didn't work out as staunch conservatives as we wanted, but he tried to. A lot of the things he did, Mark Levin would even say, this is the most constitutionally adherent president that I've seen in my lifetime. And he's a Democrat from New York. He's like, I can't believe it. So I think that Joe Kent going on Mark Levin is obviously, I think it's a good thing to do. I think you're going to get some tough questions from somebody who's not too keen on how you resigned and the things you said when you resigned.
So let's put it like this, Jay. Let's say he were to come on the show. See, if he's going to come on the show, you're gonna have to do it where you're not patronizing him. You're not leading him into making him feel like he's stupid for answering the question a certain way. It's got to be without anger. It's got to be matter of fact and real. And if Levin, I call him Levin. I like to say
it's Levin. It's
Levin is just, the Jewish pronunciations are just not, strange to me how certain things are pronounced. But Levin, whatever it is, Levine. I don't care what you want to call him.
No, you need an E for Levine, Jack. You need an E for Levine and Levine. Go ahead.
Well, so let's say that, I think that when he's going to come at him in a sort of hostile way. And you can't be like that if you want him to just be real and answer the questions the way he wants to answer them, rather than tell you what you want to hear.
We'll see. I mean, listen, Mark Levin's been doing this for 40, 50 years.
But he's very pro-Israel, like you said.
Oh, no, 100%. But
and he's coming out against the Iran war.
Joe Kent is, I think Mark Levin, though, will be happy to have him on. And listen, just like you or me, and we're actually not Mark Levin, but we would, any guest that came on our show, whether we agreed with them politically or not, we're not going to be disrespectful. We're going to ask our questions because we want real answers. And I think that's what you're going to get from Mark Levin. I think if Joe Kent is going on that program, he's just going to have to be ready to answer some questions that are coming from a side that doesn't agree with him. As long as the questions are asked respectfully and he's treated with respect, as he should, just based on his past military service, he should. I think it'll be fine. And I don't think Mark Levin, I don't think it'll get too combative. I hope it doesn't, but because I want some real answers. I
want to hear actual answers, not just back and forth barking at each other.
Exactly.
So Jay, I was driving along the I-40 highway, headed east to go home. Actually, it's headed west. Excuse me, headed west to go home. And I wanted, I took a picture of something that was on the bridge. Everybody knows I live in Asheville, North Carolina. I went through Hurricane Helene. I went through that whole. It was horrible. It was like Hurricane Katrina, but for the mountains, because, like I said, Asheville. When I said this when it happened, Asheville is like at the bottom of a fishbowl. Okay, you're a city sitting right here with all the mountains around. So all the water, all the rainwater, all the river water sits in Asheville. It all comes right down the mountains and sits in Asheville. So everything was underwater. The crest was 24 feet high at one point in water. Anyways, I'm getting off topic here. But the reason that I'm talking about Asheville, North Carolina, is because, like I said, I was driving on the highway headed home, and I come across a bridge. Okay. And on the bridge, and Asheville, if you know, is a very blue liberal city.
Yep.
So on the bridge, they show this right here. This is something that was on the bridge. I want you guys to check this out. Take a look at this. I took this picture with my own phone. It says war crimes don't hide sex crimes. And then on the other side, you can't really see it, but it says something billionaire. So I'm sure it's something else derogatory. But war crimes don't hide sex crimes. This is what's going on in Asheville, North Carolina, and other liberal cities around the world. The propaganda, Jay, is working. The propaganda is working, and that's scary.
Well, that, Jack, is the TDS bridge in Asheville.
Yeah.
That's
Take
the
a look at
TDS
that.
bridge.
Look at that.
Listen, first of all, what war crimes and who's guilty of sex crimes? Neither has happened when it comes to President Trump. There's no war crimes that he's committed, and he certainly hasn't been convicted of any sex crimes whatsoever. So yeah, that's just to me a TDS sign, and I don't know. It's a liberal area, like you said.
Absolutely.
I don't think anybody's paying too much attention to it. I got to be honest with you. That sign is preaching to the choir, I guess, of that area. I don't know.
It's like an echo chamber, kind of like you would get on a Blue Sky kind of thing. And they do the same thing on the bridge that I get off to get on the interstate. They have Palestine flags up on the bridge, and it's absolutely ridiculous. There's not enough conservatives in this area to kind of take them down. So that's why the city council is all liberal. Every single one of them are Democrats, and it's why the city is, going downhill and into ruin. It's absolutely horrible what Democrats do. I don't understand the process of, hey, I'm going to try this socialism. Oh, I crashed the economy of this city. I crashed this city. It's at the bottom. I move on to another city. Hey, it's going to be different this time. I'm going to try the socialism. I crashed the economy of the city. I crashed the city. I move on to another city. Hey, it's going to be different this time. I'm going to try the socialism. I crashed the city. It's not the socialism. No, it's not the socialism. It's these cities. I got to get to another city. These cities are ridiculous. It can't be me. It can't be my program. It's the cities and the people, Jay.
They're locusts, Jack. These people are locusts.
Exactly.
That's what they are. They go and they destroy wherever they go.
And then they move on. They destroy and they move on.
And that's why we say to people who flee, forget about politicians who flee from city to city and destroy. We tell voters, when you flee a blue state and go to red state, leave the blue state politics behind. What
There's a reason you flee.
Exactly. Leave that stuff behind. If anything, maybe take a breath. Don't vote in a couple of elections, see how it works, and then make a decision to see how you're going to vote. Don't go down there and be like, oh, I got to make this. We need a new bike path here. We need this. We got to spend some money here. Oh, wait, why aren't enough? How come that guy's not allowed to vote? Oh, this guy's an illegal alien. He's not that bad. Leave him alone. No, stop. You left for a reason or reasons. Don't bring them down there with you.
But that's the problem. Just like the politicians who say it's the city that is the problem, not my program. The voters say it's the politician who's the problem, not my program. So they are going to continue to vote for the same program for different politicians in different cities because they think it's, oh, the politician just did that wrong. I'm going to go down to Florida and vote for a different politician with the same program. Right. They'll do it right this time. Right. That is the liberal socialist mindset. Yep, exactly. It's right. You said it. It's not that socialism is the problem. It wasn't implemented properly, Jack. Exactly. We just got to implement it differently. They just did it wrong. Or we need just more time and more of your money. And this is my saying, more time, more of your money. Utopia awaits, we promise. It's never coming. In fact, it's the opposite. It's going to dystopia. Dystopia awaits when you implement socialist, communist policy. End of story. There's no two way about it. We didn't become the greatest country in the world, the most powerful country in the world in 250 years through socialism. We became that way through free market capitalism, period. End of story. It's not debatable. No. And it's ridiculous that this on our 250th anniversary, which is a huge anniversary, by the way, it's a quarter millennium, excuse me. Yeah. It's a quarter of a millennium. This is a huge year. And I plan on doing like a big fireworks celebration. I mean, fireworks in North Carolina, real fireworks are illegal. So everybody drives down to South Carolina to buy them, drive back up here and fire them. So that's what I'm going to do also. Hi, police. I'm going to be doing that as well. But they don't, I mean, they never come or care. I mean, even though it's illegal, they don't, as long as you don't blow your fingers off, they're not going to come and bother you. So it's awesome. I'm going to be celebrating the 250th anniversary by shooting off some really awesome fireworks, the kind of shit that you see, you know, like in the Boston July 4th celebration. I'm going to be doing it to music. It's going to have the music pumping with the fireworks going off to the music. It's going to be really badass. I'm going to try to get a firework that spells out 250 when it shoots up in the air. Now, I don't know if they're going to have those for civilians or not, but I'm going to try my best. But the thing is, you're right. America became the country and the power that it is because of capitalism. All these people, especially the celebrities and politicians that rail against it, you got where you are because of capitalism, because of free markets, because of our society. Otherwise, you wouldn't be where you are. Try going to China and being that politician. Try going to China and being that entrepreneur. Yeah, see how that works out. No, you're only allowed to be what the government lets you be in those kind of countries. Here, you get what you want if you work hard or you lie, cheat, and steal. And obviously, most of them lie, cheat, and steal. And they think, oh, if I implement socialism, I'll still be able to lie, cheat, and steal. But that's not going to be the case because eventually, Jay, you run out of other people's money.
That's what Margaret Thatcher said. And you're no one guaranteed equal outcomes here. You're guaranteed equal opportunity. So everybody has the opportunity, but there's no equity of outcomes. That's socialism. That's communism. We don't do that here. Trust me, you're not going to like it. And Jack, just be careful when you come back with those fireworks. Do not go over the TDS bridge that you just showed, because that's where they'll probably get you on your way back with your fireworks. Be careful.
Oh,
please.
I know. Absolutely. They definitely will. But luckily, they're the opposite way. That's a north end. So, you know, I go south, down to South Carolina to get the fireworks.
Excellent.
So, Excellent. Yeah. And they don't know, you know, we do it like the drug dealers do. We stash them in the wheel well. You know, we put them in the gas tank.
That's it. Stop talking. No more secrets. Yeah, we can't get them in New York either. But people go to Pennsylvania to get them for New York.
New York is so restrictive on everything, man.
Yeah,
everything.
Yeah.
But yet they want all of your money, all of it. Did you see what Mamdani is proposing? He wants to lower the inheritance tax, or he wants to lower the inheritance threshold to 750,000 and up the tax to 50%.
Hopefully that'll never happen. Like
that
I said,
is insane.
Insane. It's
nobody will live in New York if that's the case. Nobody.
Everybody's at 750, Jack. Everybody.
Yeah.
That means everybody.
And then 50%.
Insanity. Absolutely
you get
crazy.
Half of my estate. You get half. New York City gets half of my estate. What?
Well, Jack, how are you supposed to pay for free and fast busing, Jack?
Oh, and by the way, those bus fares actually went up. There's no free and fair busing. They went up, by the way, for everybody out there.
They're only going to get worse. It's not going to get better, especially when they want to spend listen, they got to pay for this somehow. And who are they going to charge? They're going to charge people like me. That's Absolutely. Who they're going to charge.
And I'm going to say right now that what he promised you guys in New York is not feasible. He cannot freeze the rent. That is the rent control board that handles that kind of thing. He has no say over the rent. He has no say over the bus fares. The only thing he has power over is the police department. True. And in that case, he's going to cut a lot of jobs. So the only thing he can up is crime. That's the only thing he can up. The only thing he can lessen is police presence. That's the only thing he can lessen. On a sidebar note, real quick, before we go, I want to say, everybody, make sure you follow us, Secret America TV, on X, YouTube, Rumble, Kick, and Instagram. We were recently banned from TikTok. We were banned from TikTok just because we put out, truths. They just don't want truth. Even if we frame it in a question where we ask if this is something, they still say misinformation or this or that. They banned us from TikTok. We had 1,000 warnings and they banned us. Even though there's people on there that are committing murders on TikTok or plotting murders or doing rapes on TikTok, probably. I don't know. But I would assume they'd probably allow something like that if you ask me. That's my personal opinion. That's not a fact that I know. It's just what I assume. But X, YouTube, Rumble, Kick, Instagram, Secret America TV. You will not be sorry. We have content like we did with Roger Stone. Tomorrow we got author Chris Pabst. He's a best-selling author of Failure Factory and Capital Murder. It is going to be another fun-filled show, Jay.
Absolutely. Can't wait for that one. And Jack, you have your own personal TikTok, don't you?
I do, but I never use it. I mean, I never get on there and use it because all they're going to do is ban me if I try to put any of our videos on there. Same with you. If you try to put our videos on there, they'll just ban us.
I have my own. It's at Opinions Vary if you want to follow me. I'm going to start putting stuff back on there until I guess I get kicked off. So there you go. If you want some Secret America stuff or my stuff, at Opinions Vary on TikTok. There you go. If you're not sick of me yet.
I'll try to do the same at Jack Danger Live. I'll try, but I mean, let's be honest, they'll probably ban us. But you know, his is actually our TikToks, our personal TikToks are the same as our personal X's. You can see it right there on the screen at Jack Danger Live, at Opinions Vary. So I think we solved all the problems we can for one day, Jay. I really enjoyed Roger Stone. He answered some great questions, and we had a great time. So for Jay Gatling, I am Jack Danger. Thank you for watching Secret America.
You've been listening to Secret America.